Welcome back, everyone. In this video, we are going to create the sign in with email and password and sign in with Google Sagas now. So to start, what we want to do is we want to create the entry point Sagas. So these are the ones that trigger based on the start action of the corresponding email sign in or the corresponding Google sign in. So here, let's start by saying export function for our Saga on Google sign in start. And this will yield take latest of our user action types dot Google sign in start. Here, we're probably going to use some method, which is on Google sign in, or we can call it even something more specific, like sign in with Google. Actually, I like that nomenclature better. This is what we're going to use. We're going to say export function sign in with Google. And this is what's going to trigger our Google pop-up. So if you remember, we had already created the utility functions for ourselves inside of Firebase utils. So here we're going to say sign in with Google pop-up is what we want to import in. And we want to try and catch block. Inside of our try, what we're going to try and do is trigger the pop-up and then take that authentication object, pull off the user, which is the user auth, and then run that through our get snapshot from user auth. So here I want to yield call on our Google sign in pop-up method. This value is going to return us that auth object, if you remember, and on it is a user keyword, which gives us the actual user auth object that we use so far inside of our Saga. So with this value, what we're going to do is we're going to call our get snapshot from user auth. So here we are going to yield out calling our get snapshot from user auth, passing in the user. This should now work, but we can't test it yet without setting up the rest of our catch. So here we're going to yield put sign. We're using sign in failed because we have the same failure action for all of our sign in failures. So we're also going to pass error like so. And then we're going to now pass this on Google sign in start into our user Saga. So we're hooking it into all of our Saga flows. Now, in order for us to actually trigger Google sign in start, we have to dispatch the Google sign in start action. And we're going to do that inside of our sign in form. So instead of actually manually calling the utility method, we are now going to dispatch, which means that we need to import in use dispatch from React Redux. And we also need to bring in the action creator. So let's import in from our store folder, our user, and then user action. And this should be Google sign in start. And then inside of sign in with Google, we just dispatch, which we get back from use dispatch. And now we can dispatch the appropriate Google sign in start. So now let's test to make sure everything works here. Now here we are back inside of our website. You'll notice that we have our sign out. Some of you may still be signed in, some of you might not. If you notice, when you click sign out, nothing happens. But under the hood, we've actually still triggered our Firebase sign out method, which does sign us out. It's just that we haven't actually connected the components. But if you click sign out and then you refresh, you will notice that we are now not signed in. So now we can navigate to sign in. We can hit sign in with Google. And there we see user Google sign in start. It triggers our pop-up, which we can now use to actually sign in successfully. And if we look inside, there we go. We see we've signed in with the correct user. So everything works for me. Now what we want to do is do the same thing for our email sign in. So in order to set this up, it's pretty much going to be the exact same steps, except using the actual sign in with email and password. So first, let's start with creating the entry point Saga. So again, I'm going to need an export function. And this time it'll be on email sign in start. This is going to yield take latest on user action types dot email sign and start all the way up here. And here I am going to call this on, let's think of a name. Thinking of names is honestly sometimes one of the hardest things. Let's just call it sign in with email. And this is going to be a new generator function. And here we're going to try with what we need. So let's think about this sign in with email. This is going to receive the full action. So when you call this, the action actually gets passed in like this. So the action has the payload, and on the payload is going to be the email and the password. So when we think about what we're passing in, we need to look at the user action. The user action is passing us email and password as an object. So here we can actually destructure this off like so. We can say, I want the payload, and then off of the payload, I want the email and password as two separate parameters. And then what we're going to do with that is we are going to very similarly get the user off of the auth object we get back from yielding to calling the sign in auth user with email and password. Now that's a method that, if you remember, we also made before from Firebase utils. So this method we are going to call, and we're going to pass it email and password like so. Then once we get the user object, just like we did before, we're going to call get snapshot from user auth, which we're going to pass the actual user auth object. And then we're just going to catch the error. And on the error, we are going to yield our put sign in failed. So now with our sign in with email, we need to make sure that we add this into our appropriate Saga. And also we need to set up the sign in form component so that we trigger it with the appropriate email and password. So here, if I remember, it's email sign in start. And down here where we were originally actually calling sign in user auth, we will now be dispatching instead. And we're going to dispatch with the email and the password. And now this is pretty much it. Let's just get rid of this unused. Import now, go back to the application. We'll hit sign out. We'll refresh. We'll see that we're no longer signed in. We have the appropriate fields. We hit sign in. There we go. Sign in success properly. And again, the user is the correct user. So we have everything that we need. Again, if you have not done this before, if you watch me do it, it's honestly relatively straightforward because the hardest part was really setting up this get user snapshot from user auth. And a lot of it was just rethinking about how we coordinate Firebase to do this for us anyways. So now my challenge to you is to finish the rest with the sign up. The sign up and also the sign out. Currently, we just call the sign out method, but I want to see if you can figure out how to set up sign out so it also fits within this flow. Because sign out itself is also an asynchronous API call because we're telling auth to sign us out of Firebase. So do that and then join me in the next video where we'll do it together.